Hi, I'm Jeff Woodard. I'm the wine director at the Carlton Winemaker Studio with our video series. Today, I'm joined by Thomas Bachelder, and we're here at the final day of the International Pinot Noir celebration here in McMinnville, Oregon. Thomas has brought a very special treat for me. As many of you may know, Thomas is doing something very different with his wine program.
Yeah, we have a Pernod Vergelès Premier Cru de la Nette, and we thought about bringing the Johnson vineyard here from that I sourced the grapes from Lemelson and make it at the studio. But it's kind of fun because we're at the IPNC to show the other side of the project, which is making red wine and white wine in Burgundy as well. And we make a little in Niagara, Canada. So this is a village really close to Beaune that makes very sort of floral perfumed wines, and if you don't put enough in Jeff's glass, he doesn't have a good dark color. You get color by pouring more in the glass.
Thank you. Well, I appreciate you bringing this out. This is really cool. It's this whole weekend has been packed with trying some really beautiful, amazing, different Pinot Noirs from every different region of the world. And Thomas has definitely stood out by having such a great lineup of Pinots. So what are your philosophies when approaching Pinot Noir?
Always spit. That's my philosophy. No.
Not here, I don't.
Yeah, no. The philosophy is basically, in terms of, I do believe that it doesn't put down any Oregon winemaker when I say, if you make your wines in the Burgundian tradition, you're not copying Burgundy, you're copying their techniques. And their techniques are revelatory, if that's a word, révélatoire, of terroir. And since we want, you want to know the difference between in Oregon, between a Shea vineyard and a Freedom Hill, let's say. You don't want the winemaker who's making them both to obscure their origins with, say, their choice of oak or heavy-handed maceration. So whatever cru you're doing in France or here, if you use, if you're sensitive to what it tastes like in vat, what it tasted like in the field, what other examples of it tastes like by other producers, maybe you can get more quickly to the heart of what that wine should taste like. And by that I mean, yeah, sure, I use new oak, but I use new oak that supports the wine and doesn't get in the way.
Sure.
So it doesn't give me a signature oak flavor, our wines, but it gives them a signature, they taste like themselves, if that makes sense. And that's what we're all about. We want France to taste like France and Oregon to taste like Oregon, not Oregon to taste like oak tea, for instance.
Well, you've definitely done a really phenomenal job with working with the Johnson Vineyard. That's a beautiful site. I know you planted that years ago, and it definitely has a lot of really big structure. That's one of the things I'm noticing about that vineyard is it's really coming into its own. It's got great tannin structure. You always have really beautiful color out of that particular site.
Amazing.
And as we're just getting ready to release that particular wine, the 2011 Johnson Vineyard that you made at the studio, it's really great to be able to see the polar opposite of Burgundy because it's so much lighter in color. It's pretty, it's delicate, and I know that you treat them the same.
Exactly the same barrels, same wood, same oak, same air dry, same tonnelier, and yeah, it's just, and one thing about working at the studio, I think you guys are known for a lot of good things, but maybe it's not said often enough. If the studio didn't exist, certain wines would never see the light of day. It's not just like a choice, I'm going to work at the studio and rent there for a few years. I think for most people it's they do it there or they don't do it.
Yeah.
So there's lots of wines that people just wouldn't have been able to make because they couldn't start their own winery or convince a friend to lend them a part of their cellar. Now in Burgundy I do convince friends to lend me a part of their cellar and pay for it. We started out at Lemelson here, but Anthony's a great winemaker and he's got a full cellar. There's only so much he can do.
Yeah.
So we brought the stuff over to the studio,
yeah.
And we're really happy to work there. And where else in Oregon can you walk in and just have a guy like Jeff or his helpers just show you a bunch of different terroirs and styles, right?
Styles, that's one of the biggest things. That's one of the great things about the studio is I think I can match anybody's palate when they come into the studio by opening something different that I think they will absolutely love because we have probably about 25 different Pinot Noirs being made there currently under 12 different labels, and it's a lot of fun. Eric Comaker was definitely onto something when he created that concept of having a shared facility like that.
Yeah, and I mean, when I was at Lemelson, Eric gave me a call when I was in Burgundy. I was working at Chateau Genot Boulanger in Meursault, and he said, come, interview for Lemelson. And we started up at Lemelson. Eric kind of helped build the building with Larry Farrar, who's also done, of course, many other wineries around here, notably Adelsheim. But as soon as I showed up, Eric kind of just got out of the picture and started renting one of the cellars from Lemelson. I took over building Lemelson with Eric Lemelson, not with Eric Homaker, right? Eric Homaker retreated to a cellar, changed the laws in Oregon, and then took one of our cupboards as his office. Now the cupboards only held hoses and punch down tools, but that was the start of being able to start the Carleton Winemaker Studio. Flash forward 10 years, and now I'm working at the Carleton Winemaker Studio using Lemelson fruit alongside Eric Homaker, and meeting you, watching you do your thing. I'm thinking, wow, things really do come full circle. Don't burn your bridges. Good.
Okay, so Thomas, switching gears, tell me a little bit more about this particular vineyard, the site, the climate for that vintage.
So the climate in 11 here and there was very much the same, except for it got cooler at the end here. And in Oregon, we really had to wait, and it was a late harvest with not very high alcohols, which made for sort of very classic. You know, if you have a little too much sugar, it leads to round wines that are slightly obscuring their terroir. If you have little leaner wines, the terroir shows more. Initially less pleasurable though. Rounder wines are pleasurable from the beginning. Had the same thing in Burgundy, except with a bunch of heat at the end. So they were lean wines that only had sort of 11.5 potential. Everybody chapitalized in Oregon and Burgundy.
Adding sugar to the wine to get the alcohol up.
That's right.
Chapitalizing.
And if you don't get that chapitalization in there, it's not just a bad word. It's like if it's ripe otherwise, and you have brown seeds, that chapitalization is just replacing a little bit of sun that was missing its rendezvous right at the end of the season, and allows you to lengthen the fermentation and get more stuff out of the grapes. But it also, 11.5 wines, not only are they light, but they can't leach everything out of the grapes. You know, you need like 12, 12 and a half, 13. Like, you know, berries that are macerated in alcohol for liqueurs, it's the alcohol that gets that flavor out of the berry. So you need, for that last burst of heat, because remember, sugar transforming by yeast into alcohol has a byproduct CO2 and heat. And that heat is exothermic, and boom, it heats up the whole cuve, or the whole vat, and lets you extract more, right? Gently. So not... So I think what I'm trying to say is in Pernon, you have a very rich village, Beaune, like rich in flavor, and you have a very rich village, Corton, that is also rich in flavor, and tucked into this little comb is Pernod Vergelès. Now they all share Corton Charlemagne, that famous white wine. This is a red wine from the hill, from right beside the most famous vineyard in this Pernod Vergelès area, which is called Ile de Vergelès, or the island of Vergelès. So this one is Creux de la Nette. It's just on top of it. It's perhaps a terroir a little better suited to very fine white wines, but what this gives us is a very fine mineral. Absolutely. You know. And you see articles every once in a while that does minerality exist. I'm like, hello, have you ever tasted a Chablis? Try to make a Chablis in Oregon. Of course there's great minerality in Oregon. It doesn't taste like Chablis when you make an Oak Chardonnay. Yeah. You know, and neither, you can't make this kind of wine in Oregon. Not that that's good or bad, it just is. And of course that's why we're here at the IPNC, because we've been just tasting wine from everywhere all weekend. And spitting.
And spitting. So this is a wine that we're going to be bringing into the studio as soon as we get it imported into the U.S. And I believe this is going to retail around $45. So obviously very, very limited production and availability. We
only made 5 barrels. But you know what the thing is? What's cool about starting at the Carleton Winemaker Studio is, as the Oregon part of our existence, we are starting American distribution with Oregon. It's starting at the Carleton Winemaker Studio. It's the first people to carry the wine. So like any good Oregon producer, we're starting out way up in the Northwest and going out that way. Now we don't know. We need to do about 6 states. And we don't know what are going to be the most hospitable to taking a little Burgundy and a little Oregon. We don't need to sell them a lot. But we'd love to get it out there, but we're very proud to start in Oregon, which is where our American roots are. We're Canadian, but these are where our American roots are. Not across the border. We come from Quebec. They're not across the border in Vermont. Our roots are in Oregon. I mean, our kids grew up here. Yeah. You know, our second daughter, both our daughters are adopted, and our second daughter was supposed to be adopted into Quebec, but ended up landing here in Oregon. So that's Violette. You know, that's home. I think this project allows us to keep in contact with our friends, and it takes our whole family from being wine gypsies or army brats into people who've always been able to keep hold of the family ties. So we have a goddaughter in Burgundy, the kids were young here. They're here with us now, hanging out with their now teenage friends
Yep.
in Oregon. So we
Great.
keep current.
Well, thank you so much for joining me. It's been a blast hanging out with you this weekend.
Yeah, happy end to the IPNC. We love for it to start, and then we're ready for it to end at the end.
Absolutely. Need some recovery time.
Cheers, man.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Thank you.